Welcome, space enthusiasts. Today we're diving deep into a story that's both thrilling and concerning. Two astronauts left behind in space after Boeing's troubled Starliner capsule returned to Earth empty. This is more than just a tale of high-tech failure. It's a story of human endurance, corporate responsibility, and the challenges of space exploration. So buckle up as we explore how NASA, Boeing, and two brave astronauts found themselves in this unprecedented situation. The story begins on a hopeful note. Boeing's Starliner, a spacecraft designed to transport astronauts to and from the International Space Station, ISS, was finally ready for its first crewed mission after years of delays. NASA, which had contracted Boeing alongside SpaceX to provide orbital taxi services, was eager to see Starliner succeed. The mission was supposed to be a straightforward one: launch, dock with the ISS, and return the astronauts safely to Earth. But things rarely go as planned in space. In June, after countless delays, veteran NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams launched aboard Starliner from Cape Canaveral, Florida. Their mission was intended to be a quick trip, a test of Boeing's capabilities that would pave the way for future crewed missions. But almost immediately, things started to go wrong. Even before the spacecraft reached orbit, Starliner experienced helium leaks in its propulsion system. NASA engineers noticed the issue but believed it was a minor problem that could be managed. However, once in space, 4 more leaks appeared, and the situation escalated rapidly. Then several thrusters failed, leaving the capsule with diminished maneuverability. Although Boeing's engineers were able to recover 4 of the 5 thrusters, the problems raised serious concerns about the spacecraft's ability to safely return the astronauts to Earth. Now let's take a step back and understand what this really means. Thrusters are essential for a spacecraft's ability to maneuver in space, especially during re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. If the thrusters don't work properly, it could lead to a catastrophic re-entry, potentially putting the lives of the astronauts at great risk. Boeing assured NASA that, despite the thruster failures, Starliner was still safe for the return journey. They conducted numerous tests, both in space and on the ground, to prove the spacecraft's reliability. But NASA wasn't convinced. NASA's concerns weren't just about the thrusters. They were worried about the cumulative impact of all the issues Starliner had experienced. From helium leaks to software problems, the mission had been plagued by setbacks from the beginning. NASA decided it wasn't worth the risk to bring Wilmore and Williams back in Starliner, so they made a bold decision. They would leave the astronauts on the ISS and bring them back on a future SpaceX flight. Now, you might be wondering, what happens when astronauts are left behind in space? For Wilmore and Williams, this meant adapting to life on the ISS for an extended period. Originally, their mission was supposed to last just a few weeks, but with NASA's decision to leave them in space, their stay was extended by several months. They are now scheduled to return to Earth in February 2024, a full 8 months after they first launched. Wilmore and Williams have handled the situation with the professionalism and grace that you'd expect from veteran astronauts. Both are retired Navy captains with extensive experience in space. They've spent their time on the ISS helping with repairs, conducting experiments, and working alongside the station's 7 other crew members. But make no mistake, this was not the mission they signed up for. The decision to leave the astronauts on the ISS wasn't taken lightly. NASA knew that delaying their return would put additional strain on the astronauts and the station's resources. But safety had to come first. NASA's Commercial Crew Program Manager, Steve Steach, summed it up perfectly when he said, "We made the right decision not to have Butch and Suni on board. All of us feel happy about the successful landing. But then there's a piece of us, all of us, that we wish it would have been the way we had planned it." So, what happened to Starliner? After NASA decided to keep Wilmore and Williams on the ISS, Boeing's capsule was sent back to Earth, empty. 6 hours after undocking from the space station, Starliner parachuted into New Mexico's White Sands Missile Range, descending on autopilot through the desert night. Despite the earlier issues, the landing was almost flawless. Cameras on the ISS and NASA planes captured the capsule as a white streak cutting through the sky. When it touched down, it was a relief for everyone involved. But it wasn't the triumphant moment Boeing had hoped for. Even with a safe landing, there were still some snags during re-entry. More thrusters failed, further validating NASA's decision to keep the astronauts off the spacecraft. In the end, Starliner made what NASA described as a bullseye landing. But the lingering question remained: what went wrong? Boeing and NASA have launched an extensive investigation to figure out exactly what caused the thruster failures and helium leaks. The spacecraft is now back at NASA's Kennedy Space Center, where engineers are analyzing every detail. They're focusing on the thrusters, which are suspected to have overheated during use, causing seals to swell and block the flow of propellant. Unfortunately, they won't be able to examine the thruster section itself, as it was jettisoned just before re-entry. Instead, they'll have to rely on data collected during the mission to piece together what happened. This incident is just the latest in a series of setbacks for Boeing's space program. After the retirement of the Space Shuttle program in 2011, NASA turned to the private sector to develop new spacecraft capable of transporting astronauts to and from the ISS. Both Boeing and SpaceX were awarded contracts as part of NASA's Commercial Crew Program. But while SpaceX's Dragon capsule has successfully completed multiple crewed missions, Boeing has struggled to get Starliner off the ground. In fact, this wasn't even Starliner's first failed mission. Back in 2019, Boeing attempted its first uncrewed test flight of the spacecraft. That mission ended in failure when a software glitch caused the spacecraft to burn too much fuel, preventing it from reaching the ISS. Boeing had to repeat the test flight in 2022, which uncovered even more flaws. By the time all the issues were addressed, the cost of the program had ballooned to over $1 billion. Despite all these setbacks, Boeing remains committed to the Starliner program. NASA, too, continues to support Boeing, seeing the importance of having two competing companies capable of ferrying astronauts to and from space. The goal is for both SpaceX and Boeing to take turns launching crews, one mission per year per company, until the ISS is decommissioned in 2030. But with only 6 years left before the station's planned deorbit, Boeing has a lot of catching up to do. So, what's next for Starliner? Boeing is already planning its next crewed mission, with hopes of launching in 2024. The company is determined to prove that the issues with this latest mission were just a bump in the road. They're working closely with NASA to address the problems and ensure that Starliner is... In the end, this story isn't just about technical failures or corporate competition. It's a reminder of the inherent risks of space exploration. Even with decades of experience in cutting-edge technology, space remains an unforgiving environment. Every mission, no matter how routine it may seem, carries the potential for the unexpected. And in those moments, it's the skill, courage, and determination of astronauts like Wilmore and Williams that make all the difference. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of the most dramatic space missions in recent history. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more in-depth coverage of the latest in space exploration. Until next time, keep looking up and never stop exploring.